18 months ago, Rio Ferdinand was screaming Ballon d'Or 6 times in a row on live television. Pelé was tweeting for him from a hospital bed. Cristiano was calling him the best player on earth. But today, his own fans boo him before kickoff. His own manager just got fired because of him. And Saudi Arabia just walked away from a €1 billion offer. And you know the craziest part is, he did this to himself. Let's actually rewind for a second, because the fall only hits if you remember how high he was. In the summer of 2024, this man was operating on a different frequency from the rest of football. 24 goals, 11 assists, Champions League Player of the Season, a hat trick in the Spanish Super Cup final at Barcelona's expense in Riyadh, where he hit the SU in front of the Saudi crowd just to make sure everybody knew who the heir to the Madrid throne was. He scored the goal that won the Champions League final at Wembley. Florentino Perez was looking at him the way a father looks at his firstborn son, and Ancelotti was telling reporters that Vinícius was the player who decided big games. He had the entire footballing world by the throat. Then, October 28, 2024 happened, and that ceremony in Paris is where this whole story actually begins. Real Madrid had been so confident about the Ballon d'Or that they had already booked a private jet. They had invited guests, planned the celebration, briefed the cameras, and the works. Vinícius and his entourage had been popping bottles since the Saturday before, treating the trophy like it was already sitting on his coffee table. Then, Monday morning rolled around, and a couple of Real Madrid officials showed up at his front door with the kind of news that ages a man overnight. Rodri had won by 41 points. A defensive midfielder from Manchester City had just walked away with the award everybody had told Vinícius was his. In that moment, Florentino had two paths in front of him. He could take the loss like an adult, send Vinícius to Paris in a tuxedo, smile politely for the cameras, and live to fight another year. Or he could light the entire ceremony on fire and walk away from the wreckage. We all know which one he picked. The club boycotted the gala completely, then released a public statement saying, "UEFA does not respect Real Madrid." Vinícius dropped that infamous quote that has aged like warm milk in the desert sun. "I'll do it 10 times more if I have to. They are not ready." A whole year and a half later, 10 times 0 is still 0. It was not the loss itself that did the damage. It was the way Madrid handled the loss around him. They sat a 24-year-old kid down and convinced him that the entire football establishment was rigged against his name, that the world owed him an apology, that being snubbed for one award was proof of a global conspiracy. A few months later, Kylian Mbappé walked through the front door, and on paper, this was supposed to be the partnership that ended European football for the next decade. Two of the most electric attackers alive, both still in their 20s, both genuine world-class talents, both with the kind of pace that makes defenders update their LinkedIn profiles. In reality, what Madrid built was two left-footed forwards trying to share the same square of grass on the same wing, every single match. Mbappé wants the ball played to his feet so he can do Mbappé things, which left Vinícius standing on the touchline with nobody to feed and nobody to find. The cutback runs that built his entire highlight reel suddenly led to space, and the diagonals he used to thread to Benzema now sailed harmlessly across an empty 6-yard box. Even Bellingham, in a moment of polite honesty in front of the cameras, admitted that it gets difficult when everyone keeps drifting to the same side of the pitch. He was being kind. Across last season, Vinícius assisted Mbappé 12 different times. Mbappé returned the favor on 4 occasions. Their combined goal involvement accounted for only 6% of Madrid's output, which is not a partnership so much as a hostage situation dressed up in white kits. And every single time Mbappé picked up a knock and missed a match like clockwork, Vinícius started cooking again the way he used to. The Atalanta game in the Champions League last December was the clearest example, with Mbappé limping off at halftime and the front three suddenly looking like the version of Madrid we used to fear. Then Mbappé came back, and the magic vanished like Houdini took a bow on stage. So now, picture the situation honestly. You have a player whose ego has been publicly bruised by the biggest individual award in football, and his role on the team is being quietly hollowed out by the most expensive free transfer the club has ever made. What could possibly go wrong from that starting point? The answer arrived in May 2025, when Carlo Ancelotti packed his bags for the Brazil national team job. Ancelotti, the manager who let Vinícius be Vinícius, the man who once said on camera that he is a Brazilian, he dances very well, and that does not bother anybody. In his place came Xabi Alonso, walking into Valdebebas with his Leverkusen ideas, his pressing structures, his tracking back demands, and his tactical analysis videos. He had the audacity to ask grown men earning 20 million a year to actually defend. The Club World Cup that summer turned into the first crack in the foundation. Real Madrid drew PSG in the semi-final, Trent Alexander-Arnold picked up an injury before kickoff, and Alonso looked Vinícius dead in the eye and told him he was playing right wing that night. Vinícius hated every second of it. PSG ran them 4-0 inside 24 minutes. Madrid never recovered. And according to The Athletic's reporting, the relationship between the player and the manager was poisoned from that match forward. Paco Gonzalez pushed it further on Cope Radio, claiming Vinícius had blown up before kickoff because Alonso had been seriously considering benching him entirely in favor of Mbappe and Gonzalo Garcia starting together up top. Imagine being a Ballon d'Or runner-up and finding out your new manager was openly discussing whether you should start a semi-final. 3 months later came El Clasico on October 26th. Madrid won it 2-1. It should have been a celebration. Vinícius had played a sharp first half. The league lead had stretched to 5 points, and the Bernabeu was glowing. Then, in the 72nd minute, the 7 went up on the fourth official's board, and everything fell apart on live television. He looked at the bench like the bench had just slapped his mother. He walked off, pointing at himself and muttering that it was always him. Always him. The DAZN cameras followed him down the tunnel, where he was telling anybody who would listen that he was leaving the team, that it was better if he just left. There was a phrase he muttered in Brazilian Portuguese, aimed directly at Alonso, that I am not going to translate here. You can Google it on your own time. 3 days later, the apology landed on Instagram, and reading that statement carefully tells you everything you need to know about where his head was. He apologized to the fans of Madrid. He apologized to his teammates. He apologized to the club itself. He apologized to the president personally. Read that list one more time and tell me what is missing. The coach. Not a single mention of Xabi Alonso, not by name, not by title, not even by reference. That was not an oversight. That was a billboard rented out for the entire football world to see. Then came the meeting Mario Cortegana broke for The Athletic, the moment that decided everything that followed. Vinícius walked into Florentino's office, apologized to him in person, and quietly informed the most powerful man at Real Madrid that he had no intention of signing a new contract for as long as Xabi Alonso remained in charge of the team. A 25-year-old player was sitting across from a 70-something construction billionaire and telling him who his manager should be. And the truly unbelievable part is that Florentino actually listened. Of course, the contract demands on the table were already insane. Madrid had offered around 20 million net per year, matching Mbappe's base salary as a sign of respect. Vinícius wanted 30, plus the biggest signing bonus in club history, Cristiano's money, for a guy who at that point had 5 league goals and was crashing out of matches every second weekend. That was when the Bernabeu finally turned on him. The Sevilla match in December, in the middle of a 14-game scoring drought that was the longest of his career since he was 20 years old. The home crowd booed his name during the team announcement, and booed him again the moment he came on as a substitute. The cameras caught him on the bench, mouthing the words, "What did we do?" to nobody in particular. Within 10 minutes of the final whistle, he had quietly changed his Instagram profile picture from a Real Madrid shirt to a Brazil shirt, and posted a photograph from the match captioned with 3 dots. Then, on January 12th, 2026 arrived, and Xabi Alonso's tenure ended after just 233 days, the night after losing the Spanish Super Cup final to Barcelona in Jeddah. ESPN sources confirmed it was not mutual at all. Jose Angel Sanchez had pulled Alonso aside and told him plainly that if things carried on this way, it was better to leave it. Madrid paid him around 7 to 9 million euros and walked him to the door. Mbappe posted a tribute within the hour. Bellingham followed a day later and got called a snake by half the fan base for it. And Vinícius? Pure silence. ESPN reported he had no intention of posting anything, and he never did. The man who had refused to renew his contract until the coach was gone finally got exactly what he wanted, and he could not even fake a goodbye. That is where Vinícius stands today, somewhere between the best player alive and a cautionary tale. And honestly, nobody can agree on which one he really is. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Is this guy cooked, or is the comeback already brewing?